Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sherry Noyan from DRC. I just started the recording of the meeting, so we are all being recorded. I think you can all see a slide presentation, a PowerPoint that I'm sharing. Also, today we have from DPI, Allison O'Hara and Jennifer Teasdale, and Allison and Jenny, I made you co-hosts, so you can unmute yourself. No one else should be able to. And also from DRC, I have Megan Malberg, Mike Kulzer-Oline, and Brian Bauma from our customer service area. Mike and Megan are in project management with myself. So I will just start going through the presentation. Just a little FYI. So we're doing Q&A. Hopefully you can all hear and see the Q&A. It's on the bottom of your screen, and that is where you'll be able to type your questions. And anybody who is a host or co-host, so all of the GRC folks and Allison and Jenny from DPI will be able to see the Q&A. And then just, to let you know, we'll answer questions as they come in. If we get bombarded with questions, we'll focus on more general questions that would be relevant to a lot of the people. If they're really specific and we don't really have time, you can send them either to the OSA mail or the help desk at DRC. Just to review, there are a lot of resources out there for you. So if you're a technology coordinator at a district or a school, there are training videos out there. There's a technology user guide, other documentation. For the assessment coordinators, there are also training videos if you're at the district or the school level, and a training video for test administrators. And this last bullet here shows you where you can find them. They're all on the DPI website and also in the DRC INSIGHT Portal. Okay, I think we'll open. Allison or Jenny, did you have anything that you wanted to say?
Sure, Sherry, I'll introduce myself. I think you can hear me, hopefully. This is Allison O'Hara. I'm the forward exam assessment coordinator here at Wisconsin Department for Public Instruction. And Jenny Teasdale, also in my office, is on the call. And we are open to answering any questions. And we just appreciate your time today. We did send out a link to gather questions in advance so that we could kind of tailor some of the webinar today to help get questions answered. But honestly, we only got a couple. So we're hoping that you all have questions that you can add to the Q&A now, and we'll get through those. We did receive one question in advance, and that was asking, there was some confusion about information communicated during the in-person training back in November about whether or not teachers could be using cell phones during testing. So educators, test administrators should not be actively on their cell phone in the classroom while students are testing. They want to be visually monitoring the students and not being distracted by their phone. However, just best practice, it is totally okay and expected that they will have a phone on them so that if they need backup, they can reach out quickly and text or call someone to come into the room and assist, especially because test administrators are not supposed to leave the room with kids testing. So if you have to leave for something or if you need help, you're going to need to have your cell phone, some way to reach out to the office or to other staff and say, I need someone to come in and help. So hopefully that clears it up. And I'm not sure if DRC wants to provide some information about the next question or if DPI would do that. But we did get one other question, and it was just asking about a little more detail about remote testing, but it wasn't very specific. So I'm wondering if you can add specific questions to the chat, then we could answer questions about the remote testing that is available for the first time this year to schools that have students. The schools exclusively serve students virtually. Okay, so we have one question, new deck here. Is there anything I need to do in the DRC INSIGHT Portal for students on the roster that will be taking the DLM? I can answer that. So you should go in, and you don't have to do this now. You can do it anytime before the test window closes, but go into each one of those students and assign them a not tested reason of expected to take the alternate assessment. And that is all you need to do. And the instructions on how to assign that not tested code are in the DRC INSIGHT Portal guide. And that is available on the DPI resources webpage now. And as a reminder, no one really should be getting in right now and trying to do anything, because DRC is still in the process of getting all student data into the INSIGHT Portal from our data exchange process. But beginning next week on Monday the 9th, you could get in there and start seeing your students, and you could assign not tested codes then as early as next week. Another question we have, 2. Can you remind me what the tip was for staggering sign-ons to avoid experiencing issues due to network bandwidth? I'm going to ask DRC if they want to answer
Yes,
that.
I can
Thank you.
answer that one. This is Megan. So staggering the student logins into the DRC Insight Secure application is recommended. That should be based on when students click begin the test. That's when the substantial file transferring begins from the service device. And we recommend that smaller staggered groups within a classroom, maybe like a group of 5 to 10 students, can be offset by selecting the begin the test button approximately 15 to 30 seconds apart.
And there's a second part to this question too. What's the biggest change proctors need to know for administering the forward from years past? I think from the proctor perspective, other than the test monitoring application, there aren't. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Sherry, I don't mean to interrupt. You're correct. I was thinking that some things in the portal have changed, but for proctors, test administrators don't really need to be in the portal unless they're using the test monitoring feature. I'll open this up to DRC or to Jenny. I'm still thinking about what a big change might be for proctors this year. We provide a little bit more information now. There's a handout on the resources webpage that would actually tell proctors the number of questions in each of the test sessions. That was requested, and I think we had that last year too, but that's relatively new. It's not brand new this year, but some proctors might like to have that information. We did update the checklists that are handouts on the webpage to just bring them more up to date, and we tried to put them more in chronological order. So there's new checklists that they could look over, but there aren't really big administration changes, with the exception that virtual schools can proctor remotely, and that of course is a big change for virtual schools. We got a follow-up question about what to enter in the portal for students that opt out. So similar to entering a not tested code of expected to take the alternate assessment for DLM students, you would go in and you would select the parent opt-out as the reason not tested. And something that is really important to know, when you enter the parent opt-out code, even if you enter it just for ELA, it applies like a blanket to all subject areas. Parents can't opt a student out of just one subject area. So if you go in and enter it for ELA, but the student took math is not going to be scored. That parent opt-out just kind of deletes, overrides any testing the student did do. So you'll want to just double check to make sure you really have the parent opt-outs assigned only to those students who the parents have clearly indicated they do not want scores and they do not want their student tested. Okay, I'm going to start at the top of the question list. If I have a student whose IEP indicates use of speech-to-text, is there an accommodation other than scribe to assist? Most students are not accustomed to working with a scribe that would be familiar with tools like Chrome accessibility tools. So most frequently, we are asked a student might be using an external device, but the device is not connected to their testing device. So they may have an alternate communication device that they are using, and then the scribe would be pulling the information from that device and entering it. If they have an alternate communication device that they use and they want to connect it directly to the computer that they are testing on, then we have a form. We kind of talk through each individual case to see what is possible. And so you would want to submit a form on the under the accommodations forms. You can find it for use of an alternative communication device. And so we try kind of on a case-by-case basis to work with the individual school that has the student and find out what they're using and figure out how we can make it work. We definitely do try to make it work, and there are some ways we can make that happen. Does anyone else want to take the next question about iPads?
I can take that one. It says, are students allowed to use iPads for testing? In the training materials, it mentions something about touch screens. Are these not allowed? So iPads are supported for testing. We recommend that students would not use the on-screen keyboard to type out short write responses. So for the ELA sessions of the test, an external keyboard is required.
But otherwise, it's okay to use a touch screen for answering the other questions. Is that correct, Megan?
Yes, that's correct.
We do recommend, though, that they have a pointer device for some of the math questions because the finger pointing doesn't work as well to be accurate.
Oh.
Yeah, so like an external mouse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or a touching device, whatever you have.
Can I just ask a follow-up question on that? If the student wants to use and does not want to use a keyboard and wants to use the touch screen, are they still allowed to use that?
There's nothing preventing them from using it, as far as I know.
Yes, that would be the issue, is that the student may not be able to actually visually see everything they're typing because of this amount of screen space that the keyboard would be taking up versus the text box that they're typing in. And as Megan said, the functionality of that keyboard may not function the same way as an external keyboard would.
In the materials, we do say it's required that they have an external keyboard.
Yeah, for sure. And we do have that. It's just many of them choose not to use it because they're so familiar with their iPads because they use them on a daily basis.
Yeah. I think there may be problems. I don't want to say they could try it and then find out that they're typing in text and then all of a sudden that text disappears, and it disappeared because they were using the online keyboard. I don't know if DRC has any insight into that, but the online keyboards haven't been thoroughly tested for every issue that could come up that could cause problems. Is that a fair statement, DRC, or?
I would agree with that.
I'm just thinking of those situations where we sometimes hear, a student typed in their response and then now it's gone. And DRC actually usually can go in and look at the telemetry behind that. And oftentimes they see like a student typed in a response and then they hit delete. But, because we recommend or require the external keyboard, the on-screen keyboard, there might be other glitches that an on-screen keyboard has that haven't been identified by DRC because they recommend not using that keyboard.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. The next question from Sarah, that is kind of a technology question that I can let DRC answer if you'd like.
The answer is, and Megan and Mike chime in, because the students will be coming through WISE data. If a student comes in, after the statewide upload, they will be added to a grade level. Well, wait.
Yep, you're right, Sherry. Yeah. With
they
the
will
daily
be
upload,
added.
they go into their grade level registrations. You don't have to add them manually.
So when students are imported, yes, they automatically are added to their grade level registrations. You can create new registrations, and information on doing that is in the portal guide, is in the DRC INSIGHT Portal guide. I see another question about accommodations from a new DAC. Where do we enter accommodations? So in the DRC INSIGHT Portal, you can add accommodations in a couple ways. Probably the most straightforward is to go into student management and find a student. And then you click on the accommodations tab for that student. And that's where you would see something very similar to what the old portal had, where you have a column for each subject area the student is going to be testing in. And you have a long list of accommodations, and you put a check next to the accommodation in the subject area that they're going to need that for. There are instructions in the DRC INSIGHT Portal guide on how to add accommodations at the registration level, which would be like adding them to a student once the student is in the test session. There's also an import process that you can use to import a file. And I think you refer them to the DRC INSIGHT Portal guide for instructions about doing that import also?
Yeah, that's where I would send you to. There will be detailed instructions in there and screenshots that show you what to do.
Okay, another question. Will DRC be updating from WISE- nightly, eliminating the need for manual entry on the end of districts or transfers in and out even between schools?
I can jump in for this one. Yes, now that we are receiving all the student information through WISE-, that nightly file will move students between districts as well as between the schools. So there's no need to follow the process that we've had in previous years requesting those transfers to occur.
Mike, do you want to go to the next one too about the accommodations?
Yes, I believe that once those accommodations are set, they will stay with those students. It is always best practice just to confirm that. There's a few different ways to do it, either going into the participation management, as Allison mentioned earlier. Otherwise, you can do an export to confirm that all accommodations have been assigned appropriately. And then the last place that you could verify that is even on the student's ticket. When you have those printed out, the accommodations will be listed.
I think the next question is for Allison or Jenny.
Out of curiosity, why can't a parent opt out of a portion of the test? Honestly, that has been a policy since I have been in my role for, 9 years now. So that may have been in place under WKCE. It's just that the test is thought of as an exam as a whole, and that perhaps it was that parents usually they just didn't want their student testing, but it is a written policy. There are instances where students do end up taking one subject area, and for whatever reason, they don't come back, they don't finish another subject area, so they don't get a score. But if the parent opt-out code is applied, it applies to all subjects, even if a student has started an area. And another really good question, what is the procedure for students leaving the district to go homeschool since they will be removed? Like, will they be removed since there's no school they're going to? If the status in the school information system is changed because they are going to homeschool, does that change then? Will they, and this might be a question, a follow-up question, is there a DRC tech person that can tell us for sure whether or not that student is going to be removed from the portal?
So if they're removed from the current school district / schools SIS,
If they're unenrolled, it would have to be captured in the nightly. That would be a change in the nightly update if they are unenrolled. So I think when a student goes to homeschool, I think it's essentially a type of unenrollment. And so, yes, they should be being removed from the portal. But honestly, if you have this situation, check that. Let us know for sure that the data transfer is working in that way.
They can still hit no longer enrolled though as a not tested code though, right?
That's true. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Cynthia, you're verifying that there is not a set date that accommodations have to be uploaded. You are correct. So it just needs to be done before the student starts testing. So ideally, yeah, just get it all done before the school begins testing. But, depending upon different situations, maybe your 5th graders are testing one week and your 4th graders are testing the next week. It just needs to be before that test ticket is printed for that student. Once the test ticket is printed, that test ticket will assign that student to a test form in the portal, and it may not have the correct accommodation assigned to it. It has to be entered before you print the test tickets for that student. And I see the comment about it would be great if this could be changed for parent opt-out. I can share that information back with people here. A question came in, if there are any students new to the US this school year, they are opted out only of the ELA sessions of the test, correct? You would need to do that. So you would have to go in and enter a not tested reason for ELA of newly arrived English learner, and then they are excused from ELA. So that is entered in the same way that you enter a not tested code. It's a specific code just for them that is exempt from ELA due to recently arrived ELL. Next question, will there be a separate webinar for remote testing administration? Yes, there will be. Megan, the date of that is?
February 26th.
Okay, and we'll be getting an email communication sent out to the virtual schools and then to the DACs that oversee those schools, letting them know that training session will be on the 26th. And yeah, it will definitely be a good idea to attend that. Lorian, yes, so the question is, are we able to test various grade levels together, especially during makeup sessions? Yes. You certainly can have students of different grades or even different subject areas in the same physical classroom taking their tests for makeup, or if you have a very, very small school and you want to put your 3rd graders in with your 4th graders, that is okay, as long as you have enough test administrators in the room to observe everyone. That was like rapid fire questions coming in.
Yeah, some good ones.
Yeah.
Got another question.
From Menasha, is there an option to manually add students, or will it only be via the nightly sync? I think it's only via the nightly sync. Is that correct?
Well, that Mike, Megan, chime in, but that is what yes, the nightly sync is what we want to happen. Manually adding students, what could happen is in that nightly sync, something could get overwritten. So the students should be added to your SIS, and then the next day with that sync, they will be there.
I guess if there is a unique situation where you have a student and you want to test them, you need to test them that day, maybe especially this first year as we're learning the process of this new data exchange, call the DRC help desk and ask, because that student would still be in a different district in the portal. You'd have to wait overnight. I don't know if there would be any way of doing same day, but you could ask. So someone observed, they noticed that there are 270 students short in the participant management screen compared to SIS enrollment. That's probably because, yep, it's not February 9th yet. So data are still in the process of being and coding, all of the coding and programming behind the scenes is still being QA'd and worked on.
That's right, Allison.
Someone is asking if we can get information for remote testing before the webinar so you can begin preparing. If you go to the Forward Exam Resources webpage right now, and you click on, you select under Resources, and I'm going to do this too on my computer, Resources, and then you go to, you'll see right there in the list of the links, Remote Administration Resources. If you open that webpage, there are some resources already available to you. A few of them are not up yet. They're still being finalized. They'll be up by February 24th. And we still have as placeholders some information from the pilot still posted that you'll see. But I think that would be a good place to start. You could start looking at those resources. Some of them, like I said, may still say pilot, but there are some that will be updated very soon. And looking at the pilot resources will give you a good idea, I think, of what it will be like this spring. Megan, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, there are some processes that have changed, so definitely wait for the updated versions and read those thoroughly. But if you look at the pilot versions, it will give you a good idea of what to expect.
Yeah. We do have the spring 2026 quick guide overview posted right now. So the Forward Exam Remote Administration quick guide overview for DACs and SACs spring 2026 is posted. That would be a great resource to look at even before the webinar. It's a good overview.
And the student parent agreement is also on there, and that's a good resource to look at also.
Okay, yes, because that has to get out to see if parents and students are interested in this option. So we're not using the resources from the pilot. We're updating them. They're very, very similar, but a few of the processes changed based on the feedback that we got during the pilot, or the feedback that DRC got from the pilot. For instance, some changes, more options were made available for after a student finishes testing, where they go, if they go back to their pre-test meeting or if they go to another open meeting. Some of the just administrative things may have been updated to make it a bit easier or provide districts with more flexibility. But overall, it's the process will be very similar to what was in the fall. So the question and this I might rely on DRC for, the student will only sync if they have a WISEid. So for example, if the enrollment is entered today, the WISEid is connected tomorrow, then the student would not be able to test until their second or third day. They would not be able to test until their second day at least, because it happens overnight. Is that correct, DRC?
It is, but I think this person is saying, that the student is entered, but their coordinator at the school doesn't assign a WISEid until the next day or later on. And that is correct. They won't be added into the portal until a WISEid is assigned. Mike, do you agree with that? So then it would be the day after the WISEid is assigned?
Yep, that is correct.
Okay. New this year is the option to, and this was covered in the in-person training, but to easily print one-page test tickets. So that might be something that proctors would like. That might be helpful. If you do that, though, and the student uses it as scratch paper, and then they come back and do, like, let's say they only take math session 1 in a day. When they come back the next day to do session 2, they would need a new, fresh, clean piece of paper with a test ticket on it, because you can't give them back their scratch paper that they used the day before. That is a good question. We got a question in asking if you can create individual sessions with test monitoring, or do all sessions need to have that feature? I think the answer is that you turn on test monitoring at the session or registration level. So you can certainly have some registrations or test sessions that use test monitoring and others that don't. But I'm going to ask DRC to confirm that.
Yeah, you're right, Allison.
Okay.
The test monitoring settings are set at the registration level, so you could apply it to all of the registrations, or you can just apply it to whichever registrations you'd like, but it applies to all the students in that registration or test session.
But if you did want to use it, say, school-wide for everybody, you don't have to go into each session to turn it on. There's a way that you can select all, right?
Yes. Yep. Under the registration area in the portal, you could select all of the registrations and then click the button that says update test monitoring, and then set the test monitoring settings and click save. And then that's just with a few clicks that applies it to all registrations in your school.
Are you able to do that at the district level as well? Assign test monitoring to all schools and all registrations, all within a district?
I believe so. Yes. Okay. Mike, Sherry, do you agree? I believe you can do that at the district level.
So yes, they can all be updated at a district level.
Okay, wonderful. I know we have some large districts that will be very happy. Okay, here's a question for the sync and updating of student rosters. We have had students enroll on the Thursday before the test window ends. I know. What is the exception for them to update in DRC? That is a good question. If they enroll the day before and they get put into the SIS with a WISEid, they would show up in the DRC INSIGHT Portal the next day, which would be the Friday, last day of the test window. I think if I got this phone call, it would be depending upon, the individual student and what they can do. I would say to try and test on that Friday. It's the last day of the test window, but people are doing makeup tests at that point. And obviously what the student is able to do. I don't know if they would be able to complete all of their testing in one day, but I would do test at the subject level first, like try and get all 3 sessions of ELA done before you move on to math. Because if you do 1 session of ELA and 1 session of math, then you have 2 subject areas started, neither of which are complete. If at the end of the test window, you have a test that a student has only been able to do 1 test session, then it's a district decision whether you let that actually get scored, or you could go in and enter invalidate. Because really, if the student has only done 1 test session, they've done half the test, the other part of the test would all be marked incorrect. You could argue that's not a valid measure of what the student knows and could be able to do if they had the opportunity to answer all the questions. So I would say, call DPI if this comes up and happens, and we can talk through the specifics and see what is possible, what's feasible. Let's see. So to confirm, you had the WISEid pulled on Wednesday, the record. Well, I'm going to ask DRC on that one. So if there's a WISEid pulled on Wednesday, wouldn't that get updated to the DRC INSIGHT Portal overnight Wednesday night, and they would show up on Thursday?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, just to chime in a little bit here, Mike and Sherry and I were chatting off to the side to confirm this, but there is functionality also that the DRC customer service help desk can add students manually in a situation like this, where it's, at the end of the window, there's not a lot of time. You want to get the student in there to get them started testing. we can add the student manually. And then once that SIS sync comes in, it will sync overnight and the test will be joined up with their SIS record. So,
That is very good to know. Okay, so call the DRC help desk for sure. When the student gets there.
right.
Okay. Any other questions popping into people's heads right now?
Oh, here we go. Here's another one.
Okay, if the student would sync on Wednesday because they have a WISEid, is the sync going to respect enrollment dates? If I enroll a student in my SIS on the 12th for a 15th start date, but I don't want to pull the student away from the other district on the 12th? That's a good question. I almost feel like would that be something that the developers working on the data transfer would need to verify?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that SIS transfer looks at enrollment. I don't know. We can.
I'm not sure either. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we need to ask developers on this one.
We can get back to you, Candace, on that.
Right.
Just making sure that we capture this.
I wonder if this is maybe an Audrey question.
Sure, I can check with DPI data warehouse people also to find out. Okay, I've captured it. I've captured the question so that I can follow up. And is there a way that we could just provide that answer to everyone who is in attendance on this webinar?
Honestly, I'm not sure.
Oh, maybe it could be put in the DAC Digest? All these good questions are expected with the new data transfer.
We have just a few minutes left, so if you do have anything, please. I see people are slowly leaving us.
For those left, I really appreciate you bringing questions and asking. This was honestly the most interactive Q&A we've had in a while. Okay, well, I'm sure we can probably stop our recording. And if people do have questions, you can always email them to the email on the screen. And Sherry, is there another slide after this that has the DPI contact information?
Yes, let me go there.
Okay. So you can find this information also just if you go to Forward Exam webpage on, the DPI web pages. You can find our contact information also. And we're always happy to talk and answer questions.
All right, I will go ahead and stop the recording.
Okay, thank you.